and now we know her as almost a completely different person.
I'm Erin, as you remember.
I would be curious if anybody Gypsy has talked to feels they're getting the full story.
This is actually kind of the first time I've been honest. Besides being honest, you know, my attorneys, even that, I haven't been completely honest with them, so. My life, yes. She taught me how to be a good liar, a very good liar, without any conscience. And I'm changing that. I'm trying to be a good person now. I don't want to be like my mother, and I'm nothing like her.
It's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Tuesday, July 30th, 2024. And when I tell you that I have some piping hot behind the bars tea, this is like the energy drink that Gypsy makes, but then adds some espresso and a shot of tequila. Because what I'm going to tell you today is wild. And I wasn't even thinking I would even have this to tell you, because frankly, it's not even my story to tell. It comes from someone else who happened to have a bit of a falling out with Gypsy, let's say last week around the same time. I don't know, maybe I asked about what was going on in her life and why she might be going back to the clinker. And now everything is coming together. It's interesting because Gypsy said I was being nosy. She has told this person I was being nosy. And if you're not familiar with what's going on, we're going to get into it. So Gypsy Rose Blanchard served 8.5 years. She was paroled after serving 8.5 years. She's still on parole, and she has a lot of stipulations. I know she likes to say that she only has a couple, but she has many. It's not just that she can't talk to Nick and that she can't talk to these people. She also has to be in therapy. She can't be around individuals using any certain substances. She can't drink. She can't use substances. She can't commit any other acts against people. It's not just as simple as she has to go to therapy and she can't, you know, talk to Nick. There's more to it. And Gypsy has had a hard time keeping still. She's had a hard time keeping her mouth shut, and she's been getting into fights all over her social media. It's gotten so bad for Gypsy, and she has damaged her, what was a questionable fame that she had. It's gotten to the point that now she has a PR team in crisis mode trying to clean up everything and make her into a celebrity, because Gypsy believes she's a celebrity. This isn't just my opinion. This is things she tells other people as well. And because of that, she doesn't think that she should be identified with what she did to her mother. Y'all know by now that the photos from what happened that night to her mother have gone viral. They're all over the internet. And so everyone is starting to reevaluate what their thoughts were about Gypsy, because a lot of people think she kind of minimized what happened. And I can't blame them on that. But as I've been unraveling this, other people have been reaching out to me that have also had similar issues and have also begun to realize that they too are lied to. And I know you all will say, Katie, how could you be so naive? Here's the thing. I got to know Christy Blanchard in 2019 when basically no one was even giving they didn't care at all about Gypsy at that point. I don't even think the act was out yet when I met her. The only thing that existed were some interviews on 2020 and the Mommy, Dead, and Dearest. It wasn't like Gypsy had this huge fame platform. The act did change that, and I witnessed that in real time as what happened to the family and the attention they got. And I also witnessed how angry they became about it because they didn't make any money off of it. And they didn't like that certain aspects of the story weren't favorable to Gypsy. Even though it was fictionalized, I don't necessarily think those components of it were necessarily false, now that I can think about all of this. So in January, I found out from Christy Blanchard, after years of them insisting that there was nothing wrong with Gypsy, that she actually has what's called a microdeletion. And this microdeletion, IQ 21.1, is a rare disorder that has been one of the contributing factors to health-related issues that Gypsy had as a child, including issues with her palate, issues with her teeth, issues with her vision, issues with her feeding, her vomiting, and her low muscle tone. Now, Dee Dee definitely took some of those things and ran with them, but once that came out, they were very, very worried about it becoming public, because at that point, they weren't really aware of it. They were shocked to find it. They were told by Dee Dee she had a chromosome disorder, but I don't think they ever really looked hard at the medical records. And that's what I noticed when I started watching series, is that they would pull one document out of dozens. And mind you, none of these people are doctors talking about them and claiming this is why we can prove Dee Dee was this way. Now, it's not to say that Dee Dee wasn't a good mom. I don't think it's a good mom forces a child to be in a wheelchair or pretend they can't walk. I don't think a good mom would not allow their daughter to move out. I don't think a good mom would be as controlling as Dee Dee. But I also don't think it's fair that we villainize her as much, because she's not here to tell her side of the story. And the only person that's speaking is the one that contributed to her life ending. So, interestingly, Gypsy was on the Kardashians. And the Kardashian episode, she was supposedly supposed to be talking about prison reform. Now, when the preview went live, I got really upset because I was like, here we go again. Gypsy is after meeting celebrities, because if you know anything about her case, her mom was obsessed with fame, and she believed she was a girlfriend to some singer in a band, and she always wanted to be a celebrity. She wanted to be around celebrities, and so she found ways to meet celebrities with her daughter, Gypsy. Gypsy actually got to meet Miranda Lambert, and Miranda actually wrote personal checks to her to help them with her quote-unquote medical procedures and cost of living, because Dee Dee didn't work. So she's had a lot of exposure to celebrities. And so when I saw her doing this, I was like, this is ridiculous. On top of that, Gypsy did tell me she thought that Taylor Swift wrote a song about her. And I told her that's false. I'm like, there's no way that song's about you, Gypsy. And she's like, well, maybe it's not, but wouldn't it be cool if it was? She really said that to me. So Gypsy has made a lot of friends and enemies over the years because of her crime. And it's a very divided place where some people believe everything she says. And those of us that are coming out of the fog realize that we've been like misled. And honestly, I will never discount what she did to Dee Dee. And I was always very aware of the crime scene photos. I always knew how many times she was stabbed. I knew about what happened with the neck. I knew all of this. But the framing of it, the narrative was, well, she had to do it. There was no other option. Okay. And then I came to realize there were a million other options. And if you hear something so many times, and that's the story being told by all these different outlets, and everyone's telling the same story, why are we to question anything, right? So anyways, one of Gypsy's friends in prison was a woman named Amelia Bird, who was part of a high-profile case in Missouri when she was 16 years old. According to reports, she convinced her boyfriend to allegedly unalive her parents. Her mom was unalived, her dad was injured. And Amelia is looking for a new trial or a new look, or she wants clemency. She wants out because she was also reported to be abused as a child as well. And she has been in prison for 18 years, was sentenced to 2 life sentences. And she also has the same charge as Gypsy, second-degree unaliving. Gypsy got 10 years, and Amelia got 2 life sentences. Gypsy spoke about Amelia in her book, and she talked about how important Amelia was to her, and that Amelia was like her best friend. In Released, she wrote, Amelia, Millie, and I initially bonded because of her background is similar to mine. Her boyfriend also unalived her mother. We are of similar age, and we're 2 girls that unalived their mothers. We both found Mother's Day a particularly difficult time of year. One year, Amelia was more depressed than usual, seeing commercials everywhere reminding us that Mother's Day was just around the corner. So when Mother's Day rolled around, I decided to bake her a prison cake, and I presented it to her with a writing on top saying, Happy Mommy Issues Day. Amelia was my +1 at my graduation. It felt so amazing to have her true friend there for such a happy occasion. I learned that friendship isn't about just leaning on people when you're down, but having someone equally as happy for you as you are for yourself, maybe even more so. Gypsy has really no frame of reference and doesn't know how to make friends and really is devoid of like a lot of social skills. Some say that she has antisocial personality disorder, though she's never been diagnosed. So I don't know. So she spoke about Amelia and this friendship. And then when she came out, she did a post on her TikTok about Amelia's case and why Amelia deserved her freedom. She also spoke about Amelia in some interviews, and then she put the post on her TikTok and then she took it down. So that's the place we get to with the story. So the person I spoke to is Prison Girlfriends. She's not on the she's on the outside. She's not a felon. On social media, she goes by Little Miss Lithium, and her name is Zora. So Zora and Amelia are girlfriends, and Zora has been trying to help Millie get her story out on social media. So Little Miss Lithium, Zora, came to me and said, listen, I just had a falling out with Gypsy, and I heard that you did too, and she wanted to compare some notes. And shockingly, our notes were very similar, but something she told me shocked me. So Kim Kardashian, remember that? She appeared on the show. Well, Gypsy had made promises apparently to Amelia to help Amelia through her platform to bring Amelia's story out more publicly. Amelia was looking for a level of exposure to her story to hopefully get people to relook at her case and maybe look at reducing her sentence, changing her sentence, commuting her sentence, something. And Gypsy had made promises to Amelia to help her. So when the show was announced for the Kardashians, Gypsy told me that the only reason she would agree to meet with Kim wasn't because she was trying to like chum up with her on Twitter and send her tweets and tell her she wanted to meet her. That's not why. She told me she wanted to meet with Kim because she wanted to speak about Amelia's case and help get exposure to Amelia's case. And she felt like the Kardashian show would be a great place to get Amelia exposure. Well, come to find out that what aired was all of Gypsy talking about haters online and how she's struggling with adjusting to all of the hate online and looking for advice from Kim on how to handle hate online and people spreading lies about her. And there was nothing whatsoever about Amelia. Now, it's hard to say if she actually spoke to Kim about Amelia and it was just left on the cutting room floor, because ultimately, if they spoke for an hour and they only show 5 minutes, we'll never know. But Gypsy had told me and told Amelia and Zora that Amelia's case would be featured on the Kardashians episode. So when the episode aired and I found out and I saw that Amelia's case wasn't interested, I asked Gypsy and I said, oh, that's weird. I just saw in the episode that there was no mention of Amelia. And she's like, she told me she was disappointed. She was really sad. And she was going to have to tell Amelia's friend about what happened. And she was sad because she didn't want to tell Amelia that. So generally speaking, if someone were to say, be telling the truth and they knew they'd done their best and it was outside of their control of what was showed, they would relay that message and they wouldn't block people or not talk to them about what happened. If they lied and misrepresented why they met with Kim and that's why it wasn't on the show, they may try to block them and not deal with them. And we know Gypsy lies. And so when she was confronted, this is what she said. And these were sent to me by Zora. I'm only thinking of my baby. Millie is in prison. I can't right now. She said she scribbled out this stuff because it was personal and I'm not going to go against her and ask what it says. But I said she wrote for a month, but you wouldn't know because you don't check in, because you're inconsiderate. You blocked me because you don't want to be held accountable for lying to Millie. And she said, I didn't lie to her. I did my best and I did it with grace. It's not my fault the system failed her. I did my part as a friend. You didn't even mention her. You didn't have to lie and say you would. No one expects you to think of anyone but yourself. And then she said, I mentioned her on the show and they didn't air it. I mentioned her to Kim and they didn't air it. And she wrote, the system has nothing to do with you, but your failure to keep true to your promises to your friends has everything to do with you. If you are considering your child, you wouldn't be using the baby for profit and attention for the media. And she said, how am I doing that? And she said, with your sonograms, that wouldn't be on TV. And she said, I'm not. And she said, girl. And she said, I'm just sharing my happiness. And she's like, and you're begging people to buy things for your baby when you're a literal millionaire. And she said, girl, you know, I'm not a millionaire. We used to talk about that. And she said, consider the following. While you, a literal millionaire, begged people to buy things for your child, my boyfriend's family can't even come up with the money to put him in the ground. And you've had all this money and support you've needed since prison. And she said, yet you get mad when people don't give you more. She said, that's not true. I'm leaving this conversation. I wish you the best. And she said, right, because you don't want to be held accountable. I wish you the literal worst. You're terrible. I honestly don't think she spoke to her about Amelia. I don't. And I think that if this message exchange between the two of them happened after a month of Gypsy avoiding her and not responding to her and not letting her know what to tell Amelia or what information to give Amelia about why it didn't air. And again, this is a woman that wrote in her book about how much she cares about Amelia. And now she says so flippantly, like, I'm sorry, the system failed her. I can't help her. And then because of all of this going on, because she's having these disagreements with Millie's girlfriend, she posted a photo yesterday with her and Kim, thanking Kim for meeting with her about prison reform. So she's trying to get ahead of this narrative because she knows that this is going to come out. So this is where it gets really bad. And this is where she is busted because she has conditions of her parole, and one of those stipulations is she cannot have any contact with any of the inmates that she was friends with. She cannot have contact with any felons. She cannot have contact with anyone that she was in prison with. She is supposed to just, not talk to felons, not talk to the prisoners, not contact them. And she hasn't kept those agreements. And so remember how I told you last week that Christy told me that they were actually worried that Gypsy was going to go back to prison? Well, it's true that Gypsy was going to go back to prison. Well, it's true. But it wasn't because Gypsy left a comment at all on somebody's TikTok. It had nothing to do with that. It was because Gypsy was actually defying her parole, and she was using her husband, Ryan's phone to bypass and take calls from Amelia and another one of her friends, Lori, and I think a girl named Lucky. And so on July 23rd, she sent this text message to Zora. Let Millie know I can't take prison calls anymore. I got a citation by my PO for it. It's a warning, and next one, they send me back. And then she said, what happened with Katie Paulson? And she said, I cut ties with her for being way too nosy and not a genuine friend. And she said, which she said she didn't believe is why she said, So she says, I can't talk to Millie anymore. And this is after a month of ignoring them because she got in trouble. Someone reported her to the PO for taking phone calls. And frankly, it could have not even been someone. Phone calls from jail are recorded, and anyone could have listened to Amelia's phone calls, Lori's or Lucky's or whoever she was talking to. And if they heard Gypsy's voice on the phone, they would know she was talking to Gypsy. So in May, everything was getting into the prison and everyone found out about Gypsy getting pregnant. But Gypsy was telling people at prison that she was pregnant. She was contacting her friends in prison. So Zora reached out to her and said, hey, someone in six house is telling everyone you're pregnant. She thinks it might be Lucky if you told her. I think I told Lucky I was when I was late in April, but then I got my period and then now I'm really pregnant. And she said, girl, she's telling these folks your business. I'm so sorry, that pisses me off. You're not in there anymore, and these people don't deserve to know about you unless you want them to. And she said, it's okay. It's going to get around in prison, LOL. So Gypsy was speaking to Lucky. I don't know who Lucky is. That's her prison name. Maybe that's just her name. But she was directly speaking to Lucky. She was speaking to Lori, and she was speaking to Millie. Christy told me she left a single comment on Tuesday Sparks, Instagram, TikTok, and said, thank you for making this video about me. And she said that was literally why she was going to get revoked. And I was like, that's severe. But this makes a hell of a lot more sense. According to Zora, she called and took phone calls from Amelia at least 3 or 4 times. They were exchanging emails. She was taking calls from Lucky, and she's pretty sure she was also speaking to Lori, and she was emailing them too. So she will not abide by her parole her parole guidelines. She will not abide by them. And so what her parole officer said is, we're not going to violate you this time, but the next report we get, no matter what it is, you're going back to prison. So Gypsy deleted literally everything on her TikTok, and then she put it back up when the crime scene photos came out, and everyone was like, oh, this is why. I would venture that she is panicking right now because, one, she doesn't want this to get out. She doesn't want anyone to know it. She got a citation. I know she's mentioned it on her TikTok lives, but she's never said what for. But let me be clear. It's really not common if you're a reformed prisoner to come out and willfully deny the rules and defy them. It's really not normal for a reformed prisoner that's been through the system, that knows right from wrong, to like go bypass rules and not abide by the law to speak to people that you're not supposed to speak to. Now, I understand these are her friends, but she can't speak to them, and she's not abiding by her parole conditions. If this were any other prisoner, she would be back in prison. But because it's Gypsy Rose Blanchard, she's just getting a warning. So this specific friend had a lot more to share. And there's a lot more details about what's happening with Ken and Gypsy and all of that. They basically told me what I already knew, was that Ken and Gypsy are having issues, that Ken and Gypsy, infidelity is being accused by both of them on both sides. Zora said that Gypsy is convinced that Ken is already cheating on her, and she's super paranoid about it. She also knows that Gypsy's running back to Ryan constantly to get back at Ken. And Ken is basically only back for the fame and for the money. He's not there because he actually loves Gypsy. He's really just chasing the dollar, which is evident by the fact that he quit his job and now Gypsy's paying for his bills. So I'll be sharing more information, but really what I think the pain for Amelia and for Zora is, yes, they weren't supposed to talk to her. Yes, they were helping her break the rules. And I don't agree with that. But she claims that Amelia is like her best friend. And instead of like making good on a promise and living up to that promise, she's like taking steps to bypass, to lie to her, and to cut her off by saying, well, I did what I did what I could. It's not my fault she's in there. I mean, that's so cold. And this is a girl that apparently has spent 18 years behind prison. She trains service dogs. She's super involved. She has reformed, whereas Gypsy has not. And Zora was saying that there's elements of Gypsy's story that she has put out publicly in the last several months, specifically about her grandfather, that they suspect Gypsy actually stole from Amelia's story, which is weird, right? But that's what Gypsy does. She takes pieces of information from other people and takes those stories on as her own. And because according to them, she had never, ever brought up anything to do with what her grandfather did until Amelia started opening up to her about what she experienced. And then Gypsy went public and said that's what happened to her. So when you have people like, and these are all prison stories, obviously, so take it for what it's worth. But when you're hearing her tell stories, just think about it. Is this real? Is this true? Go back and watch interviews. See if she's contradicted herself, because she always does. And ask yourself, is this someone that's reformed? I don't think so. And Gypsy is going to end up back in prison. There is no question in my mind, because she doesn't care about the rules and she does not think the rules apply to her. And the more and more she does and uses people and discards them and treats them poorly, the more trouble she's going to find herself in. And she's basically proving that she's absolutely just like her mother, that she's out for fame, that she's going to monetize her life, that she's going to put the baby out for the TV. Oh, and that was the other thing that Zora said, was that Gypsy had the baby so that she can have a storyline for the show. That was her opinion, because it would almost guarantee her another season if she had a baby. But Gypsy also is well aware that she has this microdeletion, that there's more than a 50% chance that she will pass this deletion on to her child, and that some children that have this can be profoundly affected. They can be impacted with their mental capacities, cognitive disabilities. They can be very ill. And so she's just going to repeat the same pattern that her mom did. And she's already starting. She can get as many PR companies as she wants. She can steal stories. She can pretend she's doing prison reform, but she's really not. She's just doing all of this for appearances, because at the end of the day, someone that has stood behind her and was there for her when no one else was, Amelia, for years, she won't even give her any respect and apologize for lying to her, because we are confident she lied to her. I'm confident. I think she came up with the lie because she knew everyone would look at her as clout chasing by speaking to Kim. She 100% believed that it would look really bad if she was chasing fame and chasing celebrities. And so she had to make it look like she was being benevolent. But I'm pretty confident that the production aired what was true to what happened. And what you saw was someone that was very self-absorbed and just obsessed with criticism that they were getting online, and lying that they weren't given access to therapy in prison. There was so many offers by professionals to help her. Christy even told me in 2019, they had people set up to come into prison to give her therapy. Gypsy declined all offers for therapy. So there's that. Gypsy could have reformed, but she did the bare minimum to reform, and she'll end up back in prison. So if you want to follow more and learn more about Amelia's story, Lil Miss Lithium, she's on TikTok and on Instagram. You can follow her. She does videos and she speaks about her. She also posts about her on her Facebook, and she's trying to help her following get elevated to help Amelia's story get out there. I don't know enough about Amelia's story to speak intelligently about it. I just know that Amelia is probably very devastated because Gypsy just does what Gypsy does. She chews people up and spits them out. And finally, Gypsy Blanchard was angry that people told her to take down her gift registry. Because why? I was told directly from Christy, because Gypsy said, well, I have celebrity friends, and my celebrity friends might want to spend that kind of money on presents for me. And that sums up everything you should know about Gypsy Rose Blanchard. All right, everyone, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet subscribed. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.